bridges intuition, psychic development, business growth through digital mastery. And she's a healer and an insightful guide and a transformative person, oozes personality, and you're going to enjoy meeting Sitara Fay. Sitara, welcome to our program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to be here.
It is a joy to see you. You're just so full of energy and so positive. I feel the positivity out here.
Oh, good. I love to hear that. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that I picked up immediately from visiting with you and also going to your website and just learning more about you is that you love to talk about awakening and empowerment. And you began this journey a long time ago, really. But you've really turned it into a way of helping people, particularly people in businesses. And I have to be honest, on our program, we've not talked very much about the dirty thing of making money. But we do from time to time talk about manifesting. And by the way, we're all about people having very successful lives and having the things they need. And I've always had a couple of things about money. Money is very helpful, and more of it is usually better than less of it. But I'm really interested in you talking to us today about your work and business and quantum entrepreneurship and all of that. But before we get started, the question I always ask my guests is a brief spiritual journey, if you don't mind, about how you got from point A to where you are today.
Well, I'll start by saying I feel like I'm just beginning. I feel like I'm just getting started, right? I was born a medium. I was born an empath. I was a highly sensitive little girl. I had my first real tangible mediumship experience when I was about 9 years old. And it was one of those experiences where I could not sleep in my bedroom because I could feel that there were two male presences in my room. And so it was more than like, being afraid of the dark or something like that. I could really feel that they were there. And it wasn't until I was probably 20 that I realized what was going on. And then I had my first past life memory come up when I was 12 years old. My mother was actually doing a reading with me. She was practicing to learn her psychic abilities. So she did a reading with me. And what ended up happening was I went back to that past life. I could see who my sister was in that life. And it was extremely tangible, very, very palpable. It evoked a lot of emotion. I had to process all sorts of really big emotions because I could see how I died in that lifetime. And I was 12 years old, right? I had the emotional capacity of a 12-year-old girl in this world. And so to process and comprehend that it was a little bit daunting. And so my ability started getting stronger and stronger over the next couple of years. And I had some really just horrifying traumas that happened, especially in the beginning of high school, that I really wanted to shut it all down and turn it all off. So I turned to booze. I was like, make it go away. And that ultimately was extremely detrimental. And at the same time, clearing and shifting away from that world as I got older, it really helped me to embody so much more compassion and understanding for people when they are in pain and when they are experiencing the suffering that is the grace of this life. So by the time I was about 21, I started getting my degree in psychology. And I learned that psychology focuses on mind and body. And because it was like woo-woo to think about anything that was not measurable by technology or measurable by instruments. They literally threw out the human experience, saying that memory was fallible. And for me, I was going to a very liberal school. I was in Northern California. To be hearing this from these people, I was like, well, this, like, if anybody's going to be going into this, it's going to be here. And so I was really disheartened by it. And so I started taking, I read the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. And that book was so transformational and given to me at exactly the right time of my life. And so that book kind of I don't even want to say it absolutely catapulted me into the awareness of what is transpersonal psychology, what are past lives, how can we understand that past, present, and future they are all coexisting simultaneously. So that's when my mind, I was about 21 when my mind started comprehending that time, I don't like to say that time is an illusion, but that time exists in far more ways than hours, minutes, seconds in the way that we measure it here. And so that's when my mind really started reeling into the quantum field. And I believe that it was in part because my soul was already embedded with this information. And I just got to the point in my life where my emotional capacity and my intelligence, my intellect was able to grasp and comprehend and integrate these kinds of concepts. So at that point, I actually started taking meditation classes at a place called the Berkeley Psychic Institute and learned that in one psychic reading, you could get, I'll just throw a number out there, but 5 years worth of talk therapy with a novice student. And once I really, really started seeing the difference between those and how fast you could heal by focusing on the energy body, it was like I've just never looked back. It it grabbed hold of me, and that was the path and the profession that I chose to take. Not to mention
Wow.
that psychology has a lot of rules, and I have never really been a rule follower.
Oh, well, I do identify with that. That is my undergraduate degree was in psychology as well. I learned a
Hmm.
lot from it, but there is a side of life that transcends the body and the brain. And there are some psychologists who go beyond that, but
Hmm.
sometimes they're not treated very well and certainly not respected. But I definitely agree with you on the Weiss books as well. Those are transformational books.
Yep.
River of Souls is just a classic that if you are interested in anything metaphysical, it's a must-read book and totally changing. You mentioned there were two things you mentioned that stick in my mind. I have to just say it because it was so beautifully phrased. One is the grace that is this life. When you were talking about trials and troubles that are the grace of this life,
Hmm.
that's a wonderful way of looking at trials and troubles. But you also mentioned something that just brought back a memory for me, and that had to do with seeing yourself die in a past life. And that happened to me one time. And what was it? You mentioned you were like 12. Well, I had a lot more years behind me, so it
Hmm.
wasn't as frightening. But what was that like for you?
So this particular life, I've seen it a couple times, and it was actually the second time I was doing the Dr. Brian Weiss meditation, and I was in my 20s. I was already in getting my degree in psychology when the second one happened, and the second time it was a little bit more traumatizing. But the first one that I was talking about, I was on a Viking ship with who is my mother in this lifetime. And she and I were females, and we hid ourselves as females. We wanted to leave where we were. And so we were basically able to get on this Viking ship, but we were posing or positioning ourselves as men. And so when we were found out, they basically, tied rocks to our feet and threw us in the water and basically let us drown. And I remembered like having a memory of looking over under the water and seeing, knowing that this was it, like that was it. And I felt that I felt the emotions and the feelings moving through my body as a 12-year-old in this life, in this body, but processing that experience. And I remembered looking over and seeing who was my friend in that life, who's my mother in this life. And my mother happened to be the one giving me the reading. And so the sensations, one of peace, because it was through drowning. It's like such a peaceful way to die, I think. It's such a peaceful way to exit. But simultaneously knowing that the karma, for me it was musing at the karma and understanding how souls move through life together and how souls continue to interweave and intertwine and make agreements to play different roles over different lifetimes, over different functions, over different time periods as we evolve as beings, and that we're there to support each other through that. And obviously when I was 12 years old, I wasn't really comprehending that. But in seeing that death and in knowing the ties that were formed, especially with my internal family unit, and I really also believe that we're not shown all the lifetimes that we've ever had in existence. I think that that would be far too overwhelming. But I do believe,
Absolutely.
right? But I do believe that we get shown the pieces and the glimpses of the information that's going to help us at that point in our life. at that point in time, which is why we get those like clues that help loosen the pickle jar, if you will.
Absolutely. I remember being in as I observed this in a land very similar to New Mexico, Colorado, out in the mountains, working in the hills, uh, working on a fence along with some other people. When some people just
Hmm.
rode up and just all shot us all dead. And I remember as I left that light, I was so angry that these with just they just took our lives
Yeah.
without as much as a word. And what an experience that was to have that. And you just go, why was I shown that at this time? What is the significance of
Right.
putting all of this together in here? What an experience. Well, it sounds like you've had many medium and psychic experiences starting at a very young age. But now that you're moving forward in your life, you appear to be attracted to helping people, particularly entrepreneurs and business people, and personal work. Why don't you tell us a bit about your work right now that you're focusing on?
Thank you. I'd love to. The the biggest point for me, it's like where my passion is. When I was 21 and at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, I had a very clear understanding that my divine purpose, my reason for being here is to help support the illumination of human consciousness and to facilitate as many awakenings as possible. So I started doing readings, I started doing, helping people here and there sort of
Hmm.
thing. I didn't really take it seriously until I was in a car accident. And when I was in a car accident, I actually broke my nose, so I had to go under anesthesia, get things fixed. And I remembered being under anesthesia, and I remembered my angels being there with me and saying, "This isn't like you got to get on track. Like you're a little bit too far off. This is what you came here to do. This is what you need to focus on. Like enough is enough. You've had your fun, sort of thing." And it changed everything for me. I started my business. Um, that year. And within, I think it was 2 years from that point, I was running a multiple six-figure business, running masterminds and coaching programs, specifically using Facebook and social media, that sort of thing. And I will tell you right now that the landscape has completely changed. That was in
Oh yeah.
2016. And so now, part of the reason I get really passionate about growing your soul centered business and supporting entrepreneurs in being able to create something that supports their livelihood, that buys their groceries and pays their bills, that is something that is created out of the origins of their heart, is because that origins of their heart space, I believe, is fully associated with our own purpose. And so I don't see them as different. Like you embodying your purpose should go hand in hand with how you make money. That's my own personal perception of this world. And I
Actually, I think we could argue that there's no way you can separate it. The way you make money
Yes,
is very telling of all of that, right? I mean, people people that's how you express who you are.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
wouldn't it be great if people did it with a mindfulness and with a spiritual approach as well?
I mean, I believe that the world would be in such better conditions if we were all focused on making money from the core of our heart. And
Yes.
the reason that I'm passionate about that being one of the most spiritual things you can do, it evokes the most growth of anything I've seen, except maybe other than romantic relationships, because we know romantic relationships are there to support our growth and to help us evolve as well. But ultimately, when you are growing something and you are putting yourself out there and you are putting your heart on the line, you're putting something you are so passionate about out there into the world, and you're basically asking people, do you want this, would you like this, and you're up against so much rejection, you're facing so much discrimination. I can't even tell you how much discrimination I have faced, especially in my line of work. You're bumping up against religious belief systems, you're bumping up scientific belief systems, like I am triggering.
Philosophy, right,
Yeah,
you name it.
my existence triggers people 8 ways to Sunday if they haven't opened themselves up to the true origin of their divine nature. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. But let's talk about maybe an herbalist or somebody that has a predisposition to understanding herbs and how they work with our body, our metaphysical qualities, all of that, but they're having troubles making money doing it. I believe it's part of my genetic encoding. Everyone on my mom's side is an entrepreneur, everyone on my father's side is an entrepreneur. So when I really look at what is the composition of information and life experience that my parents have brought to me and my grandparents have brought to me, it's the understanding of having some sort of business savvy, just kind of nature, and being able to birth ideas into form. And so I often think of myself more as like a business doula. I really get excited about helping people create an idea and then creating a ground up from like 0 to 10K a month business plan. How do we get you there? And how do we get you there? What internal beliefs are in the way? What emotional hiccups from childhood are blocking you? How do you feel about yourself? Where is your confidence levels? So for me, it's so much more about the internal, personal, and spiritual growth that goes along with following your purpose and then putting it out there and saying, yes, please, and can I have some money? Which is oftentimes the most terrifying question people have to ask, or the conversation. People get so weird around money.
They do.
It's true. And it's so funny because money itself is it's just such a freeing energy. It's just such a liberating energy that when you if you can just take all of the attachments, all the emotional attachments that we have around money and just kind of swim in what the essence of that energy is and allow yourself to be embodied in that energy and feel the freedom and feel the openness and feel the possibilities and feel the resources. It's like your imagination really can just take over with what you can create when you take the brakes off. Well, I don't have enough money off of that. Well, when we start to play in that field, our heart starts to open up to going, okay, well, yeah, obviously, like if my purpose or what I've been seeing, the blueprint of what I've been seen to create, it's going to cost millions of dollars. It's going to help millions of people, but it has a price tag to that. If I don't deal with my own money issues, if I don't deal with my own family programming around money, then it's actually blocking me from being able to be in service to many, many more people. And so a lot of it has to do that broke healer archetype thing and the thing that says, well, you're not a real healer if you're charging for it. We live in a modern age. Like I pay for my own groceries. I pay for my own stuff here. And it's not necessarily that we're in community where the shamans or the healers are taken care of by nature of the tribe. We're just living in a different era. We all have to
Absolutely.
overcome all of this. And it simply is what it is. So part of it is a lot of healing around what those beliefs are.
I know, and there's been such a strain by society as well, who sometimes thinks that a spiritual person can't have any money. They don't apply those standards to themselves, but when it comes to sharing spiritual help and enlightenment, sometimes they think that the people who do this should just somehow exist on nothing, and um, and and that they can get by. And that, unfortunately, that's not the culture I live in, or the
Mhm.
world that you live in
Mhm.
as well. But I do agree that there are people who uh, appear to be scamming people. I do appear to that there are people who are not necessarily living their lives the way they should and charging people for it.
Mhm.
But that's true in anything. Uh, you could,
Police officers, lawyers,
yeah,
doctors, like
anybody can do that.
politicians.
Hmm.
It doesn't
I've
matter exactly.
I've known people in every walk of life, and there have been the good ones, and there've been the ones who weren't so good.
Mhm.
There are the people who hold their hands out, and there are the people who put something in your hand. I think it's possible to put something in people's hands, and at the same time receive something back as well. And so I appreciate what
Mhm.
you're saying. So let's get to the point of it all. The reason you exist is to help people like this. What's holding people back? Why aren't they experiencing this that you're talking about? What's all this deal that's holding a person back from getting what they need in life?
Well, I think there's a couple different questions here, and the one that I want to focus on is like what is holding healers back? What is holding natural healers back? And also, what is holding people back from believing they can heal themselves psychologically, mentally, physically, emotionally? We have everything within us to be able to know what we need, and a lot of us have been deprogrammed from listening to that voice. From a very early age, we've been taught to trust your teacher. They know better. We've been trust your parents. They know better. We've been taught to trust your doctor. They know better. And so, from so many different angles, we have been taught not to trust ourselves. We have been taught to actually devalue our own internal intuitive nature and connection to understand what it is that we need to help ourselves.
You're
So,
so right about that. I meet people every day who don't have the slightest bit of confidence in anything that comes from themselves.
mhm,
And sometimes it's considered greatly spiritual to say, well, I just don't know anything. I just wait for it to plop into my lap somehow, as if,
mhm.
your brain is not an important part of your life and as well. Wow. Yeah, but I'm with you on that one. Continue.
Yes. So, with that, that's what I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit
All right.
here.
Here it comes, people. Here comes the rant. Sitara's on a rant.
So, here we go.
Here
So,
we go.
I've been facing a lot of censorship. And it's the kind of censorship that has, in some ways, been absolutely debilitating. I've had a Facebook page with over 100,000 followers taken down. I've had payment processors withhold tens of thousands of dollars in my account because they saw that I was using the word psychic in my messaging and all of that. And there have been so many obstacles that I have been facing just simply by using the word psychic. And so people go, well, well, why is that? What's going on? Well, we have to zoom out a little bit and we have to zoom out and go, okay, well, why is the right wing and the left wing fighting when so many of us know that it's the same bird, right? There's so many aspects in this world. Why are we taught that imagination is not real when your imagination and your visualization is directly connected to your ability to co-create in this world, to be a divine creator? So there's a lot of messaging in the media. There's a lot of messaging in societal programming. There's a lot of messaging that says do not act and follow your heart. Stay connected to logic, rationale, and reason. If you are following your intuition, you're woo-woo, you're out there. But ultimately, all of these components of who we all are naturally, because we are infinite beings of light before we come into this physical form, and we will continue to be infinite beings of light as we shift. So, that point of consciousness that exists inside of all of us, I genuinely believe is the anecdote that will flip the script of what's happening in the world right now. So the chaos that we see, all the insanity, we'll just shortcut it and say it's just we've all seen it.
Yes,
We've all experienced it. We're all
we've all
watching.
experienced it.
We're all watching. It's that
Totally with you.
I believe that the embodiment of our own source connection is what will be the anecdote that flips the script on what's happening in the world. And so, right now, this is why we have the Great Awakening happening. This is why so many more souls are coming online and going, okay, I'm remembering the truth of who I am. I'm starting to see my role in divine consciousness. I'm starting to see, how the indoctrination of what I've been told to believe about myself is no longer true. And then the psychological distress that comes with that, of going, I've been duped, I've been lied to my whole life, and then how do we recover from all of that? That's why I have my business. That is what I get passionate
Absolutely.
about. I say, come here, let me help you make money while you're going through the process of awakening and helping others. Because as I mentioned before we started this, it's all hands on deck right now. It
It
is
is.
all hands on deck. And so, yeah, that's where I get really passionate about it, and why I reached out to you to be a part of what you're creating. Because yeah, that C word, the censorship that's out there right now is just getting out of hand. It's
Here's
absolutely
the
out of hand.
here's the crazy thing. Every hardcore business person out there, that even the one who would have nothing to do with the word psychic, started with an idea, perfected it in their imagination, worked at it on the side and perfected it. They were using these very same tools to co-create, and then one day launched their idea, went forward with it, but totally oblivious to what they were doing and how they were doing it.
Yep.
Well, what you've done is refine the process of the internal imaginary part, which is, I think maybe we should use a different word than a imaginarium or something like that. Maybe we should call it a mind experiment or a sandbox or something like this, because you really do have to have those moments where you sit, you think, and if you put a budget together and you're thinking of all the contingencies that's going to happen to you, you're now in the realm of using the mind. You're using the imagination to project out and to think and to say, what if this happens or what if that happens? And then you put it on paper, you add the numbers to it, and suddenly it looks really tangible and real. And you show it to a bank and they say, well, yeah, you've really got this down. You know your business. But it all came from a place that you'll lose dollars on if you use the word psychic.
100%.
The word imagination.
100%.
Well, let's just say that you're not as crazy as people say you are. But you may have to change your vocabulary, because I've learned that words are powerful. And my job is to teach people in the language that they do understand, rather than to run them away with words that might be scary to them. So maybe consider that. But here's the thing. You are making a difference. You are working with people. You are helping them learn how to make money and while they earn. I would like for you to talk about how you manage to move people and align them internally so that they express this. And this is true manifestation we're talking about here. This realignment internally so that they can express themselves externally and live the life that they were put here to live.
Yes.
They were all here for a purpose, and let's face it, it is going to take a few dollars to make that purpose happen, and you have the tools to do it. But you've got to have a little help from somebody like you. So talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. This is a great question. It's that the how, right? People want to know, how do you teach people how to develop their psychic abilities? Well, I have a very unique way. I do not teach in the way that I was taught. I had to deprogram a lot of the way that I was taught after I got out of there. And I had to learn the way my abilities naturally work for me. And so I believe that psychic abilities are like a thumbprint. We all have stronger abilities, and all of our abilities are very different. They're very, very unique, in the same way that our perspectives are all very different, and how we see things is very different. So the way I like to teach it, and is also a way that I learn from my own clients, which this is what I get so excited about, is that I teach people how to heal themselves, and I teach them how to open their heart. I believe that our heart-centered consciousness is a direct connection to our soul. And so our soul has a map. It has a golden compass. It has, this is why you're here. This is why you're magnetized to this person. This is why you want to read this book. This is why you want to go in this direction. This is why you have this impulse to do this thing at this time. So that heart-centered consciousness is ultimately the map to your entire purpose.
Yes.
In this, right?
Totally on board.
In this world, there are, again, so many things that keep our hearts closed. This cancel culture BS, all of this separation that we're seeing, divide. It's almost like a mirror of what has been going on in our heart. And so I teach psychic development principles through genuine, open-hearted connection and healing. And the truth is that when we start opening our hearts, it hurts. And it hurts because we feel the pain and the encoding that said, close this door, lock this up, keep this person out, walk away from this circumstance. All of those things create barriers around our heart. And it isn't until, I believe, that we have the emotional capacity, the mental and egoic consciousness developed to be able to actually hold the container to release the trauma. Because ultimately, trauma happens in an experience where something happens and our emotional capacity, basically, we're not emotionally mature yet enough to fully understand and integrate what has taken place. And so there's a part of us that goes into survival mode, and there's a part of us that gets like fractured in that point in time. Well,
Absolutely.
right. So when we go in and we reconcile that point in time, I do believe that we can change the past. Anyone that says you can't has not been able to do it. I genuinely
Yeah,
believe that we can because time is malleable.
it is.
Experiences
And
are malleable.
it is. And the way we do that is through the heart connection.
Mhm.
I think the thing is that people want to have an open heart, but they've been
Absolutely.
hurt. And until they believe they're safe in doing so, they're not going to.
Mhm.
But it's a trap because the mind will say, well, you're never going to be safe. You can't take that risk. Well, we've been through this before. How many times are you going to get hurt? I
Mhm.
mean, how many people are you going to meet and do these same crazy mistakes with?
Right.
The mind will always keep that heart locked tight because the ego needs to be in charge. But the heart will say, we can open a little bit. We can do it this way. And as we move a little bit and show unconditional love, universal love unconditionally to everyone we meet, we suddenly find that the heart heals the past as well as protecting us in the future because we have a wisdom. The heart will give us a wisdom to know who we can
Mhm.
trust and who we can trust appropriately, but maybe not as much as another person.
Right.
But there's a wisdom to the heart that people don't understand. They think it's just all or nothing. I just have to open myself up to everybody and let everybody in. But the heart won't. The heart won't make you do that. The heart
No.
will. The heart will share appropriately.
Yes.
The heart will take care of you. You can trust your heart.
Yes. Well, and a lot of what you're describing is interpersonal relationships. And
Oh
so
yeah.
part of the message that I really want to share too is that the heart is available for so much more than that. The
Oh
interpersonal
yeah.
relationships are it's like it's just the beginning of what the heart is capable of. And when we like in mindfulness teachings or in spiritual development, there's so much that focuses on egoic consciousness, the development of the mind and how powerful the mind is. Well, I really believe that we haven't even really gotten to the point where humans are ready to develop the consciousness of the heart. We're
Oh,
starting to.
absolutely.
It's
We're starting.
starting to get
It's
there.
happening. There's a big shift taking place. I'm
Mhm.
telling you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the shift is happening. But you're right. The heart is the key.
Mhm.
The heart is key. W- Lisa and I, in our other programs, we talk so much about turning off the mind, and it's not that you throw reason out the door. It's just that you learn to question the unique logic that your mind is always presenting you. Well, you
Mhm.
don't have the ability to do this, or you weren't trained to do that, or you didn't finish your college, or you didn't finish your GED, or whatever it is you think you need to do, and so therefore you're doomed to a life of whatever. Our mind is. It's time to bundle that little buddy up and say, "You just stand over here for a while and watch me do something."
Right.
And the heart will show you how to do what you need to do,
Mhm.
and you are really onto something. So, getting people to open their hearts is one of the things that you are trying to move people to. What are some baby steps people can take in your work that you do? What are some baby steps that might help a person to open that dadgum heart?
Well, it is a baby step, but for some it can be monumental. And there's two
Yeah.
things I want to touch on here. One of them is forgiveness. For
Oh, yeah.
forgiveness, write those forgiveness letters every single night. You want to change your life in a matter of 3 weeks or let's say a month. If you write a forgiveness letter to whoever comes to your mind, but if you write a forgiveness letter every night before you go to bed for 3 weeks, watch your life change because all of a sudden you have all of those grudges and just like crunchy energy that you're holding in your heart. Once you let that go, you leave room for new to come in. So all of that stuff, all of the anger that you're holding, and trust me, I have been screwed over in ways that have held me in contempt for years. The lessons in forgiveness that I have had to learn to be able to say this are no small feat. So I just want to say that I'm not saying this from a pie in the sky, sort of like, ooh, forgive thy neighbor. No, like boots on the ground, forgiveness is messy. Forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is painful. And once you do it enough, I like to go into the Oprah stance. I have a little joke about this. It's like once you get on a roll with forgiving people and you feel how heart opening it is, you get to go, you are forgiven and you are forgiven and you are forgiven. And let's say you forgive that one person, but then all of a sudden, three other grudges that you're holding or points of contentment are, they all just start washing away. And so once we start that stream of forgiveness, our heart opens so effortlessly. It really does. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing that I really want to speak to is that I really believe that a person's life changes significantly. Like this can really evoke a turning point in someone's life is when we encourage and create a relationship between the mind and the heart, and where the mind surrenders to the ideas and the movement and the momentum of the heart. That when the egoic consciousness goes, okay, I will take your direction, heart. You lead the way, and I will make the calls. I will send the emails. I will go to the right place at the right time. I will be a servant to the expansion of the heart. That's when your life completely changes. That's when divine synchronicities happen and the whole thing starts opening
That's
up
how you flip the script.
completely.
That's how you flip the script. And you flip the script by saying, okay, what is it you want me to do, heart? I can do that. And the ego in its proper way is so beautiful because it'll always say, yeah, I can do that. I know how to do that.
Absolutely.
I can write an email. Sure. I can be on a podcast. Yeah. What do you want?
It's always just a series of tasks. If we really break it down, it's one step at a time every time.
The interesting that you would mention forgiveness, because my spiritual journey in earnest began with me sitting in a healer's office, just angry as all get out at some things that had happened in my life. And so he pulls out a book, about radical forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And I did not want to see that book. And I could just feel, in addition to the anger I had to the person and persons involved, I was feeling it for this guy as well as he pulls out his little forgiveness book. He was right.
Yeah.
He was right. And I've learned the truth of that over the years.
I'd love to go into this a little bit more in a way that I think will be really helpful, because if we can help people shift some energy while they're listening, let's go. So I like to think of these kinds of entanglements, because they really can be entanglements between one or two people, or they can be entanglements with a group. It doesn't necessarily matter. But I oftentimes see it as a tug of war rope. Like we talk about energetic cords, and sometimes those can be, a little bit difficult to grasp, that sort of thing. But ultimately, there's a point where we are choosing to hold on to the rope. We are choosing to hold on to the cord. There's some part of us within us that is saying, I am agreeing to holding this constrictive, angry feeling frequency inside of my body. And that's what I'm committed to. Which is ultimately, when we are forgiving, it's that we're just choosing to let go of the rope. We're not saying I condemn what you did. We're not saying I agree with what you did. We're not necessarily saying I want to have you sit next to me to put myself in a position where that will happen again. But what we're saying is, I'm choosing internally, I'm making an agreement with myself to release my point of attraction with this. And ultimately, what that's also going to do is it's going to reconcile that point of attraction within ourselves that is magnetizing the same experiences over and over again. It's why we go, oh, I thought I learned that lesson. Well, if you haven't let that frequency be released out of your body, you're going to have a version 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0 that's going to come back, because that frequency that we're holding, that's saying I don't like this person because XYZ, rather than I'm grateful for this experience because it taught me XYZ, then we're giving our, like, we're literally just magnetizing the same loop. So forgiveness, it opens just so much on so many levels, especially in the quantum field.
Sitara Faye, we've been talking to you today, and I'm hopeful that this is part one and that you'll let me do part two.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
How do we get in touch with you? Tell us a few things about your business, how to get in touch with you, and about your programs.
Beautiful. Well, easiest way is Instagram, actually. Sitara, Sitara dot speaks. You can find me there on Instagram, YouTube as well. Instagram I love because it has direct messenger. I've met some of the most incredible people on Instagram just by having conversation. So you can reach out to me there. We have monthly subscription opportunities to do deep dive transmissions at a very, very affordable prices, as well as full year training certification programs for intuitive entrepreneurs, people who want to follow their heart's calling and learn how to build, not just how to make income. We start there, but it really is, how do you want to build your legacy? How do you want to build a solid and unshakable foundation for the business that you are creating in a world of uncertainty? I've learned the lessons to be able to know how to lay the bricks, mix the grout, and set that foundation. And so that's what we're teaching in some of our other programs. But ultimately, I would say reach out to me on Instagram. Myself or my assistant will be happy to answer any questions, get any links, get on the phone, that sort of thing. So we love to connect with people that, are attracted to my work, what we're doing here. Like I said, all hands on deck. So the more people we can connect with, the better.
So I really mean this. I want to do a second program with you.
I would love to.
I'm not done talking to you. And I don't think my audience is done listening to you yet. Is it possible that we could? I have in 7 minutes. I've got to talk to a person on my W-2 job, the thing that